Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire. Hello, and welcome back to the show. Before I get started, I wanted to let you know two things. First, I'm hosting an event called the Release Healing Event. It's a group healing event that'll be on Zoom. It's online on October 21st at 6 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. And there's still spots available, so you can go scroll down and check the link in the show notes to sign up. This, again, will be a small, intimate group, not going to be more than 8 people. And you'll have the opportunity to set intentions, get real clear on what it is that you want to heal. And then during this 2-hour healing event, I'll be using a couple of modalities to work on you both individually as well as in the group. It's going to be a really awesome night, so don't miss out and go ahead and click in because there's only so many seats left. Secondly, I just want to remind you that you have access right now to a free gift that I put together for you. It's called the Ask and Receive Method for Releasing Trapped Emotions in the Body. It's really a step-by-step video and a PDF cheat sheet that walks you through the process that I do on a regular basis with my clients. I do it so often because it's so powerful. This little package I put together for you was inspired by last week's episode, how unresolved emotions are at the root of your health issues. And I think today you're going to see just how much it relates to your issues with procrastination as well. I mean, really, your emotions are at the root of so many of the issues you face. So don't forget to grab your free gift at the end. It's in the show notes, as well as the information for the event. So let's jump into Soulful Change, breaking up with procrastination and avoidance. So what is soulful change anyways? Am I just being cute here? Maybe, but soulful change is about creating change in your life from a place of excitement, from a place of joy, purpose, intuition, versus shame, anxiety, not good enough beliefs, striving based on rejection of yourself. So that's not soulful change. One could argue that is what we could call ego-driven change that will at some point eventually self-sabotage. But when we create soulful change in our lives, we are moving towards something. When you do something and you're excited about it and you make soulful change and you make the goal a soulful goal, you are moving towards something that you believe in, that excites you, that gives you energy. When we are creating change from lack or beliefs of not good enough, you're usually running away from something. It's usually fear-based. Perhaps you're working so hard running from what you feel is imposter syndrome. Or perhaps your new diet is motivated by being disgusted with yourself, rejecting yourself. So running away from your current self, running away from fear of judgment and criticism as an example. So today, we're going to raise your awareness around your habits and attachments to procrastination and avoidance, and talk about a new way for you to show up and shake this bad habit in a soulful way. So I'm going to start by sharing something here that you may not have heard before. So listen up, because I think this is important for you to understand, to grasp at the base of everything we're talking about today. You do not procrastinate because you have bad time management issues. Have you ever noticed that after you signed up for that time management app that you just got, or that new productivity hack, that you were still procrastinating? Finding a way to manage your time differently, will not resolve procrastination. And this is the kicker. This is what's so important, because procrastination is not an issue with productivity. It's an issue with your emotions. You see, procrastination is an emotional regulation issue. In other words, you procrastinate because you are ineffective in dealing with the emotions that you have about the task you're avoiding. So if you're doing a task or you're supposed to be doing a task that irritates you, overwhelms you, or generally puts you in a bad mood, you put it off as long as possible, right? While your brain is wired to avoid the threat of discomfort, procrastination can be so erosive and harmful to your self-esteem. So while it can feel like you're doing something that feels good, or better, I should say, by putting off something, you're actually causing more harm to your self-esteem. It's bad for you physically because it creates a more chronic stress and angst in the body to deal with, because really you are, this is sort of the perfect example of stuffing, pushing it away, ignoring it, not paying attention to it, distracting yourself with other things. All of that, as we talked about last week, is harmful on your body, right? All those emotions just being pushed down. And now energetically, it's a major drain on your energy and your vibration, which leads to chronic feelings of powerlessness, insecurities, on your abilities to make things happen. How you start feeling about yourself becomes impacted. Procrastination is also an example of poor boundaries with yourself. Effectively, you are not setting boundaries with yourself to protect your well-being and follow through on your goals by managing these emotions in a good way. So when you're procrastinating, it's almost like nobody's guarding the gate, as they say, right? You're not showing up for yourself. You're not setting limits. You're not showing up. And lack of boundaries with self becomes a really bad habit. And this is why ending procrastination, right, and learning how to manage these emotions and changing this behavior is a total reclaiming of your power, and it feels so good. So let's take a moment to explore some of the feelings you might want to be looking out for. And these are the major hitters when it comes to procrastination. So I'm just going to hit them quickly. One is the fear of failure. This one's kind of the most obvious, right? We delay tasks because we're afraid of not meeting expectations, perhaps, either our own or others. The thought of failure can feel paralyzing and lead us into avoid taking action altogether, right? Almost like some of us can get that freeze response, that something about that is just too scary. It's too much of a reach. It's something that really triggers me. And I'm almost in a state of freeze when it comes to trying to do anything about it. And the next one you want to look out for is perfectionism. And this is when we set impossibly high standards. We can feel overwhelmed by the need to get everything just right. The fear of not producing perfect results causes us to put off starting, fearing that we won't meet those standards. So that one is a very slippery slope and very popular amongst the procrastinators, right? I'd even say most procrastinators have some perfectionism. And even though there might be a lack of self-awareness around that perfectionism, some people feel like, I'm not a perfectionist, I screw everything up. Or I'm not a perfectionist because I'm not possibly perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about the anxiety. So the next thing is that the task is overwhelming. So the emotion is overwhelm. And whatever that task is, perhaps it's large and it just feels overwhelming. You don't know how to even start it, right? And so that overwhelm, you can't even see a way in. So you just put it off and you don't sit down and do the work to figure it out and break it down. So the next one is fear of success or success itself. So this can be fear of how it might spin out of control, right? This thing that you're putting off is potentially attached to a vulnerability. Perhaps it's putting yourself out there in some way, or it leads to putting yourself out there in some way, or being seen or valued in some way. And this can lead for us to just really feel like, I don't know what will happen if that blows up, if it turns into something really successful. Or perhaps you had a success and now you suddenly find yourself procrastinating the next steps to follow up, to follow through and to do more or go out there and be vulnerable again. And success itself can be kind of strange that way. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you go do something and you get all these, accolades, or you get all this attention, and it's deemed a success. And for some reason, after that, all you want to do is hide, like just put under a rock somewhere safe. And, the idea of like measuring up again, fear again of letting everyone down, but that maybe that imposter syndrome, like people will see, oh, you were a one-hit wonder, whatever that might be. But those fears around success and the success itself can be tricky. Another one that's really big for you to look out for and to notice is your indecision. So a lot of times when we're procrastinating because we either don't want to, we're not willing, or we're really struggling with deciding and making a decision on something. And indecisiveness in itself can be pretty daunting for some of us who kind of spin up in our heads with anxiety. And some of us can really have fears around making the wrong decision, right? And that indecision can many times go hand in hand with perfectionism and having to do the right thing and make the right decision. And then also as empaths, it's big for indecision to come up because a lot of the time you're, depending on where you are at as an empath, sometimes, we're really indecisive because we're spending a lot of our time feeling out, absorbing, and being really invested and attached to other people's opinions, thoughts, feelings, emotions. And so when someone says, hey, what do you think? It's kind of like, I don't know. And so we also really need to look at what's underneath that and understanding and healing what is around indecision for you. Now, boredom and burnout are also two that I just want to make sure we mention because they're also equally worth your attention. Burnout is an emotional state that leaves us drained and empty and exhausted and lackluster, right? And that can make it really hard to have the energy to put into something, especially if we associate boredom with it. And boredom even more likely comes with burnout. Burnout really, that lackluster state, as I mentioned, doesn't allow us to feel connected to our passion, to our excitement, to our joy. So it leads us to feeling more bored with tasks. And so that can really be underneath the problem that you're having with procrastination and looking at, how are you taking care of yourself? Do you acknowledge that you're experiencing burnout? What does the balance in your life look like? How are you getting your needs met? Do you have time for the soul needs, the things that light you up, the things that reconnect you to yourself, to nature, to, whatever that is for you. And listen, sometimes we have tasks that are just boring. Maybe there's just some data entry task that you are just like, I would rather stab my eyes out than do this task, right? And so I think it's really important for you to sit with that too and understand, what is the emotion here? And what kind of mindset shift do I need to have because my goals are important to me, because I have boundaries with myself, I'm setting limits, because I am, doing all the things that we're going to go into next. You're going to take a look at, what is it that needs to shift here so that I can change the story? Because a lot of the issues with our procrastination are not the tasks themselves. Even that boring task that you had to go and do, you could likely be like, wow, actually, most of the time we're like, that really wasn't that bad. I actually got it done pretty quickly, right? And so it's really important for us to take a look at what our stories are that we're creating so that we can shift our mindset around it and get it done. And then the last thing I want to say here is I want to shout out to my ADHD peeps, my people who relate to processing issues, impulsivity, things that make it more challenging for us to sit and do the thing, because that feels a little different. And while it is valid and true that it might take you 2 hours to do something that takes somebody else half an hour, because it takes you 45 minutes just to reacclimate your brain to a task, there's a lot of other stages involved in doing the thing for you. But there is also an emotional regulation issue. I know there's impulsivity. I know there's difficulty sitting. I know there's challenges in doing the task. Even remembering if the task is even not in the forefront, you might just recognize it's not even procrastination. I literally just I don't have it in my mind. And so then we got to get more active in terms of boundaries and how you're going to set yourself up for success. So I want to mention this because there are things that you can do to help support you. And all of this applies to you as well. I just want to say everything we're talking about and identifying your emotions and doing the work of understanding and listening to them is huge for you. There are also things that can support dopamine release for you. There's supplements. There's all sorts of actions that you can take that help support dopamine, because really, we lack dopamine. And so action creates motivation. That's true for all of us. And even for the ADHD person, once you sit yourself down, you have the boundaries, you set the limits, you do the things that support your brain and your body to show up. Well, you in particular need to create the urgency in order to push out all your amazing thoughts. And here's the urgency is, and this is true, you know if you know, that you have amazing thoughts. And if you sit down long enough to collect them, long enough to just spike them to start rolling out, or long enough to get going, that action is going to precipitate motivation. And when you have urgency, because and here's the kicker, is that your urgency will come when you're going to lose all these thoughts if you don't get them down, right? The reality is you just got to get started, and that's for all of us. So now what do we do about procrastination? I'm going to give you some steps here that we can take to just a few things to think about and some things to do, okay? And so first I want you to recognize that step number 1, it is helpful for you to identify the emotion. Now, when you are procrastinating and you come to the awakening moment when you recognize I am procrastinating, you're not so on autopilot that you're not even thinking about it. You have that golden moment and opportunity that you recognize you're procrastinating. And at that point, I want you to stop and start to identify, what is the emotion here that I'm feeling about this? What is it? And it's really important to come up with what is it, the identifying part, because it separates you from it. A lot of the times we're just becoming our emotions. We just kind of become them. And so we just are in this state of immersion with them, and we don't separate ourselves from them to look at them and get the information we need from them. And so by identifying it, you begin the process of separating from it and looking at it differently. Instead of letting your emotions drive the bus, you can wake up, make different choices about how to help yourself with this emotion. Wake up versus autopilot, right? Being present at the time of procrastination is the only way to change it, to make a different choice. You can only do it in the present moment. It's not something you can look behind you and say, hey, I should have done that, or in the future, I should do that. The only time you can actually make a difference is in the present moment. So I do want you to stop and recognize it, like say it out loud. Now, the next thing that's really important when you're recognizing you're procrastinating is to actually connect with your why. Focusing on your deeper purpose behind why you want to achieve this goal is super important. For example, if you're avoiding starting a business, there's steps for you to take and you just can't get yourself to do it. Connect with why you want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe it's to gain freedom, to express your creativity, to support your family. You need to kind of maybe make a list of your why. Get a sticky note and put your list of all your whys on that sticky note and put it the places where you work so that you can remember, why am I sitting through this thing that's really hard? Why am I going to do it even though I feel uncomfortable? Why is it so important? And without connecting to that why, we lose our motivation. It makes me think about some of the manifesting tips that I give. And sometimes I tell people, when you're trying to manifest something, make it your password, because you're writing that like 500 times a day, right? So maybe make your why your password. So you can just keep putting it out there to remind yourself that there's a bigger picture. There's something really worthy of this journey for you. And then last, I like to just plug in like a mantra or something to just say to yourself. And one of the things I think you could say to yourself here is, for this example, I feel scared, but fill in the blank, acknowledge the feeling, identify the feeling. I feel blank, but my desire for freedom is stronger than my fear. Your desire for your outcome that you want, the thing that you are, your why is stronger than your fear. Okay, so that's like number 2. Number 3, I want to also just acknowledge the importance of breaking up tasks into small steps. These are super obvious, but, even as empathic types, we can get really, we absorb so much, we leak energy, things drain us differently. When we have a large task to look at, sometimes we feel so overloaded and overwhelmed by all the different aspects of it. Perhaps other people are in play, we're managing their energies. There's things that we might be doing more so than even others. And so just to really try to break anything large and anything intimidating into smaller, manageable steps, just to reduce the overwhelm that's probably coming up. So whenever you feel overwhelmed, it's time to sit down and break it up into tiny, teeny steps. Because those tiny steps create progress. And remember what I said, if we start with action, we will get motivation. So it can even be the tiniest things. I mean, for example, if you want to write a book and you're like, it's just too huge, I don't even know. You don't need to write the entire book, right? You need to break it down into daily goals. Like maybe today I'm going to write 50 words, right? Just 50. I'm just going to start something. Or maybe I'm just going to break down an outline. I'm going to start with the first half of the outline. Maybe I'm just going to start with, the first quarter of the outline, just to get your thoughts moving. That's all that's needed. It's just starting. It's just getting your thoughts flowing. It just requires you to have the discipline to create the space to start. And in order to create the space to start, you need to take a deep breath and deal with the emotion that's coming up. And coming up with something you can say to yourself, like, it's safe for me to start. It's safe for me to have no idea how to start. I'm right on time. I'm not supposed to be any different. This is just the beginning. Another thing, number 4 here, I want to talk about is just cultivating some self-compassion and resiliency. Did you know that the more self-critical you are when you fall short of a goal, the more likely you are to procrastinate next time? In fact, there was a study done that showed people who forgave themselves for procrastinating were significantly less likely to procrastinate again on the same task. So actually, again, it's the emotions that are tripping people up. So forgiving yourself for procrastinating actually makes you potentially procrastinate less. So shifting from this perfectionism to progress by embracing self-compassion, especially when things don't go as planned, because they aren't always going to go as planned. I mean, I feel like nothing ever goes as planned. If you fall short of a goal, instead of beating yourself up, remind yourself that setbacks are part of the process. I didn't finish the project on time, but I made significant progress. And, another thing you can say to yourself is, it's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to feel disappointed, but I am still moving forward. That last part there, but I am still moving forward, is your commitment to yourself, your acknowledgement of the emotion that it's okay to feel disappointed. That's part of being human. You're going to feel disappointed. And I'm still moving forward. I want to talk to you about intention setting. Setting intentions and using affirmations are something that I have found to be helpful because it sets a tone for the day by addressing the elephant that's in the room before you get busy on autopilot that, you're likely going to you're going to preemptively tell yourself you're going to want to procrastinate this thing. You're aware of it. You bring self-awareness in. You can acknowledge your emotions in it. But you create space to set your intention for the day. So for example, you can write down maybe 2 intentions for the day that you're going to focus on. So you get your tea in the morning and you sit down, or your coffee, and you sit down and you just create, this could be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, where you just create space to create the intention, to set what you're going to be aware of today and what you're going to do with this awareness, right? So the intention that you might set is, I'm going to prioritize progress over perfection. This focus shifts the goal from doing everything perfectly to simply making progress. This is really important because really at the end of the day, a B+ is better than no grade at all, right? So embrace the idea that small steps are better than no steps at all. So here's the mantra. I release perfectionism and embrace progress. Every step I take moves me forward. It reduces the pressure to get everything right, making it easier to start and sustain momentum. By focusing on progress, the fear of failure sort of diminishes. It's not about anything else but just the progress, and the tasks feel a little bit more manageable. Now, we really need to connect with whatever our intention setting is. So these are just ideas to spark your own thoughts about, yes, that really jives with me or not. So another thing that I recommend is the intention of act now, adjust later. So this is something that was really, really big for me. This is a big one. And I'll tell you, this helps cultivate the habit of immediate action. Even if things aren't perfect, you trust that you can adjust or refine your work later as you go. The key is to start without overthinking. I tell you, I am such an overthinker. When you sit at meetings, I used to be in awe of those people at the meetings who, you'd have all these tasks divvied out. And they're those people at the meeting that are actually doing the task while we're at the meeting. That may not be groundbreaking to you. But I'm sitting there with my to-do list growing as I'm sitting through this meeting, right? And then there's a person next to me who's like knocking them off as she goes. And it's really something I really had to look at, like, wow. In life, I sometimes like to drive with one foot in the gas and one foot in the brake. And that brake represents my perfectionism, my wanting to slow things down so that I can make it perfect, all of that kind of stuff. But when you say act now, adjust later, over and over to yourself,
right? I act now and trust in my ability to refine as I go. The mantra. I act now and I trust in my ability to refine as I go. It gives me the freedom to say, just do it. Do messy action. And messy action is not my MO. But it has become, I've been doing a lot more of it. And it really is something we have to show up for, some of us. Now, why it works so well is because by removing the need for everything to be perfect before starting, this intention encourages immediate action, right? Once the momentum is built, it becomes easier to maintain focus, to continue working with less time wasted on hesitation and self-doubt. We have to deal with the emotions that we're having around it while also taking action anyway. So act now, adjust later. Now, listen, my friends, I am not going to lie to say that I do the act now so much more. I'm with people and they say, oh, will you send me an email on blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it as we're talking right now, just because I don't want to forget. I'm doing much more of that. And I'm going to ask you to look into how you can do more of that, like every day. I want you just tomorrow, today, this week, look at how can I do immediately what I'm telling people that I will do later, right? How can I do something when I have the idea versus put it off? And now was going to say is, it is quite possible that you can do this messy thing and then spend hours adjusting it later. That's on you. But I do believe that just getting it done is a huge hurdle. And I'm just going to keep saying this, motivation follows action, people, right? So it's a muscle and we can experience the domino effect. And suddenly you're taking action on all sorts of things, from calling the plumber to finally hanging the picture on the wall just because you started this work project. It's like it builds a muscle and we start getting this sense of personal power and we start feeling really much more in charge in our life. And we start looking around us saying, oh my gosh, all these undone projects I really don't want them. And you start having more motivation and energy towards things. So highly recommend you really start to show up for that. And now another one I want to talk about is trusting your inner guidance to make decisions. Us empaths, we can get stuck in procrastination when we overthink, when we doubt ourselves, especially when we're overwhelmed by others' needs and emotions. This intention that I'm setting here, that I'm talking about, can tend to help us trust our intuition to guide our actions with confidence and start the process of working those boundaries with expectations of other people, or you might have some really old habits of always needing other people's validation or other people's opinions. And so it might really be hard if you're feeling very indecisive to start a project or do a thing. And so I want you just to create that mantra of I trust my inner guidance to lead me. I make decisions with clarity and ease. I think this works because this intention of really setting the intention, I'm going to trust my inner guidance to make decisions. I'm going to start making decisions and I'm going to understand the emotion behind it. I'm going to speak to that emotion. I'm going to put that emotion at ease and I'm going to move through it and take action anyway, even if it's uncomfortable. That's the commitment. That's the boundary you're setting for yourself. And if it's in your path, if this thing is happening in your life, meaning that's in your path, then your best is enough because it's meant for you. It's there. And even if you screw it up royally or you just don't make the right decision, you adjust later, you figure it out, you learn from it. But sitting and doing nothing is the worst you can do, right? By trusting your instincts, and really that's part of what builds trust, is by doing what I'm saying, is like, pay attention to the emotion, ease the emotion, put yourself at ease, say your mantra, act anyways, push through it, take action regardless. You're going to start trusting your instincts more and more and more. And you can move forward with tasks without being weighed down by indecision or outside influences. Okay, so the very last thing I just want to mention, a lot of times we can procrastinate when we feel emotionally overwhelmed by external energies. And maybe when you sit down in the morning and you're writing down your intentions, they can change week to week. You can find what you're tripping you up this week is a little different than a few weeks ago. But setting the intention to release the emotional overload and stay grounded helps you maintain clarity and move forward more easily. So the mantra is, I release what is not mine to carry. I'll stay grounded, centered, and focused. I am going to actively throughout the day choose to release what is not mine to carry and recognize that what's happening, what is blocking me, what is causing me to procrastinate might not really even be mine. You're taking on other people's feelings, opinions, expectations, thoughts, and they might be perceived or they can be actually energies that you're absorbing. So setting this intention can really help you let go of emotions or energies that don't belong to you and create space for clear thinking and productivity. Just really getting connected again to being grounded, because that is one of the most important things you can do as an empath is ground yourself. You're a powerhouse when you're grounded. You're a light. You are unstoppable at times in terms of just how you can show up and be of service in the world. So combining this with your own, with your own emotions and your own stuff, but also being aware of what other people's stuff is, can really help you stay present and more action-oriented. So when you sit down to recognize and identify, like we talked about in the beginning, identify what the emotion is, also take a moment to recognize, are there other people's emotions and their opinions or expectations that I'm letting in? Am I letting those in? Am I allowing those? Am I absorbing those? Am I creating my procrastination? So I really believe it's possible to build trust with yourself, to follow through on your goals. Even if you've been a chronic procrastinator, if you simply follow a few of these steps by showing up, identifying the emotion, right? Recognizing that it is an emotional issue, because you've probably been telling yourself like all this time, how bad you are at time management, or how bad you are at, getting tasks done, thinking it's got something to do with being lazy or some other issue, but it's an emotional issue. So your emotions are intelligent. You've heard me probably say that a million times. They are trying to let you know that something isn't right. But of course, it's not necessarily the task that is the problem, but the story you're creating about the task that might be causing problems. The story that you're creating about the task is actually triggering emotions. And those emotions are trying to tell you, we don't like this. There's something wrong here. They're trying to protect you. They're trying to stop you, slow you down, or whatever those emotions, the messages those emotions have for you are probably more likely about the story you have about the task. And if it is about the task, perhaps that's something worth listening to. Maybe this task isn't the right task for you. Maybe there is a reason that you're not doing this. Perhaps you're not recognizing your intuition is at play. Perhaps you don't realize the intelligence, so that you can really start recognizing, wow, this actually isn't right for me. This isn't what I should be doing. It's a bad move for me. And so instead of beating myself up for a month because I avoided it, I actually can stand in my power, own that personal power, recognize this isn't right for me, and adjust. And that is so powerful. Right? So making soulful change here will help you reestablish a sense of this personal power we're talking about and show up differently. So identifying and releasing emotions is a game changer. Listening to these emotions, understanding what they're trying to teach you is a game changer for most all aspects of your life. Last week's episode covered how your emotions are impacting your physical health. And that I mentioned at the beginning inspired me to create that gift for you, which is also in the show notes. And it's the ask and receive video and cheat sheet that I made for you. And it's literally a step-by-step process to take this to another level for you. You can Use the step-by-step guide every time you face procrastination in order to learn more about yourself, what's really getting in the way, so that you can get back on track and feel powerful again. And like I said, perhaps these emotions will tell you something that you didn't even realize was, intelligent, that something that was intuitive about you doing this procrastination bit, right? So it's really important for you to listen to your emotions, let them guide you. So go ahead and download your video and your cheat sheet, because that'll make it easy for you to do over and over again. And I'm excited for you to get started. Well, that is the end of our show today. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much. If you have a moment to rate the show or leave a review, I would be so appreciative. Please go ahead and have a wonderful week. I hope that it's full of lots of light and love, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle at michellepowerman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Powerman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers. Until next time.